wholesale price inflation has risen to a 4-month high of 14.55% in March against 13.11% in February. The rise was basically due to surging prices of crude, petroleum and natural gas as well as basic metals. Now, according to the Commerce Ministry, the prices of crude and petroleum products have risen due to a disruption in the global supply chain caused by the Russia-Ukraine war. Let's go across first to my colleague Sunil, who's monitoring the story. Sunil, so you have wholesale inflation accelerating to a 4-month high. This is what the official data is showing, and this is much worse than what economists were expecting.
That's right, and in fact, this is actually the 12th month in a row it's above 10%. Of course, as you pointed out, it's about crude prices, oil prices being on an all-time high, which has led to this. So this is far worse than the prediction. And retail inflation has also hit 6.957%. So there is definitely a cause of concern. The Ministry of Finance as well as for the RBI will have to act and ensure that for us, the common man, this is stopped at the earliest. Because as you are well aware, there can't be far worse tax in terms of inflation. It affects not only the middle class but the poor to a great extent. And it's in that context we'll have to wait and watch and see what steps will be taken, corrective measures to ensure that this inflationary trend is curtailed.
And Sunil, what is the opposition saying on this matter in terms of the economy?
Well, they have always consistently said, I told you so. This is something that they've been pointing out politically, and in the run-up to elections, state elections, we saw that there was a freeze from November for any increase of prices, and there was no really decontrol of petroleum prices. That's why we saw some politicians even remark saying that let's have elections every month so as to ensure that petroleum prices are kept on a hold. So it's in that context that they continue to raise and say that this is a huge cause of concern for the common man, and the government needs to take corrective measures to stop this inflationary trend.
All right, Sunil Prabhu reporting there from the capital. Thank you for those details. Now there's a sharp uptick, as Sunil is pointing out there, in the WPI figure. That is a result of hardening food and fuel prices, the latter mirrored by disruption in the global supply chain caused by the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The prices of crude, petroleum and natural gas, mineral oils and basic metals, among others, have surged. So what does this mean for the common man? What does this mean for the Aam Aadmi? Trying to help us decipher and go through all of this, we have joining us now Professor Santosh Mehrotra. He's a visiting professor at the Centre for Development, the University of Bath in the UK, a research fellow of the ISA Institute of Labour Economics in Bonn, a former economics professor from JNU. We also have Vijay Sadhana, who is an economist, joining us. Mr. Sadhana, first to you. So inflation, I think, has now hit a 17-month high. And we're showing the prices for clothing, milk, vegetables, all of that surging to multi-month highs. Does this suggest that inflation is turning structural right now?
Good afternoon to you and to all your viewers. Let me mention one thing very clearly, that any economy works on energy. And in a country where we have 140 crore population and 80% of energy, especially fuel, if it is imported, definitely we will have implication of that on every aspect of life, which we are witnessing when it comes to food inflation, transport cost going up, labor cost going up, and whole lot of other challenges which is bound to happen. So it's nothing new there. Now problem here is that what is the solution? Because problem is well defined, we can keep on arguing how critical or otherwise it is. But the point here comes up is that what is the solution? Now, when you are totally dependent on crude for international market and no trader is going to give you anything free or they will not exploit the situation, it means you have to pay the price what market is demanding. Because as buyer, we have no choice. Now, second option is that we have to structurally relook into that where we can subsidize and where we cannot. Unfortunately, our lifestyle has become more energy intensive. At the same time, even fertilizer prices have gone up much higher than the crude prices. Now, with the balancing act, 140 crore people, everybody needs subsidy in one form or the other. At the same time, we have no alternate revenue sources in this country. Income tax is very low. Whatever surface tax we are generating is going into a whole lot of other expenditure, welfare schemes. At the same time, we have a free schemes like free electricity, free water, and so many things. So my way of looking at it is this needs a political consensus. There is no easy answer. We cannot say that X, Y, Z is responsible or not. Definitely, it's a national crisis. We have to address it, and there has to be political consensus.
There has to be political consensus, but political consensus on what? Mr. Mehrotra, I think we can all agree. What is the solution out of this? We've had, if there has to be a trade-off for this government between economic growth and economic stability in the form of controlling inflation, where do you see this government coming down? Where do you think this government should come down?
Well, what we clearly know is that growth is only, GDP level is only back to 1920 level, and the per capita income is at 2017-18 level. So growth seems to be a far cry. Let's not go there. I think first we have to worry about giving relief to the middle class as well as to the vast majority of the poor in this country, which means about 800 million people at least. And unfortunately, the cause of this rise in prices is entirely in the hands of the government. There's no reason for it to go on raising taxes and then cutting taxes just when elections are due. That means if elections are due, they can cut. So why can't they cut normally? It is perfectly possible for the government to do so. It does not have an intention of doing so. Had it had an intention of doing so, for 8 years it would have done so. It has not. What we are seeing is for 12 months, the WPI has been higher than 12%. CPI consistently around 6% or above 6% now. Now, if we were just told that there is no solution, everyone has to suffer, everyone wants a subsidy. No, it's a very simple solution. The government should be generating direct tax revenue from personal income tax from the super rich, those who earn more than 1 crore per annum. 1. 2, the government needs to generate revenue by a surcharge on corporate income taxes, which have been reduced from 30% to 25% overnight in 2019. We are in a crisis of an unprecedented kind, and poverty is growing, and the government needs to put a surcharge on corporate income tax, even if it's temporary, and similarly a surcharge on personal income tax of the super rich. We know that the listed companies have made the highest profits in 7 years, in a year in which the rest of the economy has tanked and the rest of the population of this country have seen their incomes decline. Private final consumption expenditure, our second advance estimates have told us, are still down by 5% compared to last year. So, I mean, the government, it is in the central government's control, and if it wanted, it can do it.
If it wants, it can do it. Mr. Sardana, so these are the solutions put forward. What is your response? There are options, there are solutions. The government can take action, but it's not going to be easy.
Let me clarify some of the big numbers. We are talking about super rich in India. Yes, you can tax it. Number one, how many of super rich we have? 1,000 plus, maybe 1,100, if you classify them as super rich. Number two, the valuation which they are super rich is actually a valuation, not an actual cash flow in their hand. You have to understand that. Whatever money they are getting in the form of dividend, even if you collect that total money, even if you increase the tax by another 10%, not more than 25 to 30,000 crore at the best you will ever recover. Ever recover. But the damage will be, when you try to do that, people migrate. We have seen that what is happening in India, when you increase the tax, all the HNIs, they migrate to UK and Dubai and they settle there. So whatever revenue and investment option you have, it is like killing a golden goose. So we can do that. We can kill a golden goose as a, I will say in today's globalized economy, in a short-sighted, myopic view, it never worked. Otherwise, what was the need of giving tax incentive for any investment country? Why they should invite the rich people to come and invest? Otherwise, you can do whatever you want. You can have a communist regime, but ultimately why China is giving tax regime, one has to understand. Third option, which is very important for us, is that whatever you do, 140 crore people, even if there are 14 crore, you cannot sustain this huge population by 2 to 3% people, those who are paying taxes. That is illogical. So one way of looking at that, if your population is paying 60, 70% people paying direct taxes, you can subsidize 2, 3, 4% like it is happening in the Western world. But having a 2 to 3% taxable population, sustaining the load of 140, it is illogical. Now people say everyone is paying taxes. Point is, when everyone is paying taxes, you have to spend on education. You need free education. You need free electricity. You have to spend on defense. You have to spend on infrastructure. It's very easy to say. And my only request is that those who claim government can do, why don't you put up a white paper? How to generate resources, how to spend, let us see their wisdom, how it can be done. Simply making a statement does not make sense. Sir, please don't laugh. It is a serious matter. I'm not doing a joking with you.
I didn't realize that it's a serious matter.
All right.
Wealth tax.
Mr. Malhotra.
Don't waste time. I know you are intellectual.
No. Mr. Sardana, let's not get personal. Let's not do this. Mr. Malhotra, I'm going to give you a chance to respond, but I don't want to make this a debate particularly about whether we should tax the rich and whether, that is feasible or not. Mr. Sardana, but basically, Mr. Malhotra, I think, would it be safe to say that the government says the high rate of inflation is primarily due to rise in prices, crude, petroleum, natural gas, mineral oils, etc., because of disruptions in global supply chains caused by the Russia-Ukraine conflict? That's what the centre is claiming.
We know that.
Would you agree, or do you think there is more to this that is under the government's control?
That's precisely the point I'm making. There's more to this. Of course, there is more to this.
All right.
Because the international prices until 2014 were the order of $120. What were we paying then? We were paying 70 rupees. So why are we paying at $100 what we are more than 100 rupees? That's the bottom line. Point two. A wealth tax was. May I finish?
Mr. Sardana, please let him finish. Mr. Sardana, please let him finish.
I'm asking question. What was the population then?
No,
Mr. Sardana, please let him finish.
I'm not going to let you speak.
Mr. Sardana, please let him finish. It's not fair to our audience. We're doing a disservice to our audience like this.
I did not interrupt you, Mr. Sardana.
Mr. Sardana, you weren't interrupted. Please let him finish. I will come back to you.
Mr. Sardana.
Mr. Sardana.
You will not be heard by
I'm going to have to go into a break, and then we will be debating this topic at 8:30 also, and we'll invite Mr. Santosh Malhotra back on then. Mr. Sardana, nobody's getting to... If the intention is to make sure nobody hears what Mr. Malhotra says,
this kind of channel,
it's working. But let's...
NDTV,
Can we just turn down Mr. Sardana for a second? Turn down his audio. Mr. Malhotra, please go ahead. I've turned the audio down. 2 minutes, please, though, sir.
Thank you. Of course, I don't need time. I have to make very specific points. There was a wealth tax in place in this country until 2015. This government eliminated the wealth tax. Why? At that point, it did levy a 2% surcharge on incomes above 1 crore. It can levy yet another surcharge because these are very unusual times. Point one. Point two, $28,000 millionaires have left India in any case. They are fed up with the policies in place currently within the last few years. $28,000 billionaires. Point three, in 2019, in the pre-budget election, the government raised the threshold for personal income tax and eliminated 75% of the personal income tax payers of this country. It fell from 60 million to 15 million. This government's policies. Fourthly, corporate income taxes were supposed to be reduced slowly between 2015 and 2019. This government did not do it. It did it in 2019 and lost 1.5 lakh crores per annum as a result of that. Has the country benefited through a higher investment rate as a result of the increased corporate taxes? No. The government, these corporates have actually reduced their debt leverage